Our goal when we're asked to sacrifice bunt by our coach is to move a base runner up, say from first to second into scoring position, or sometimes second to third. We have to know our responsibilities first and foremost, and then we have to execute a successful sacrifice bunt. If there is a runner on first base, my goal is to try to sacrifice out towards the first base side. Runner on first, we sack to first. If we force our first baseman to field the sacrifice bunt, he is not nearly as athletic, typically, as our third baseman is, and he's not nearly as used to making throws to second base as our third baseman is, and we're going to have a much better opportunity of being successful moving our runner up. If there's a runner on first and second, we want to sacrifice down third. We want the third baseman to field the ball. If he has to vacate the base to field the ball, there's a real good chance that we're going to be able to move our runners up. So always keep in mind the little saying, runners on first, sack down first, runners on first and second, sack down third. Once we have that established, now we can work on executing the sacrifice bunt. As I take my sign from the coach, he gives me sacrifice bunt. The first step in my mechanics is to get into the front of the box. I do so because that gives me more margin for error. I have more fair territory to work with. Once the pitcher comes into his set position to deliver the pitch, as soon as he comes up to his balance point and starts to break his hands, I'm going to go ahead and get out there early. I'm going to show sacrifice bunt, and I'm going to create my angle early so I can have as least amount of movement as possible. As I square around to bunt, there's a couple options that I have to execute perfect sacrifice bunt mechanics as far as my bottom half is concerned. I can rotate with my back foot, squaring up my knee and opening my front foot a little bit and widening my stance slightly to create good balance. That's one option. The second option at the lower levels is to actually square up to the pitcher to sacrifice bunt. The third option is to really open ourselves up so we can get our head forward and create good balance, and we can get in here and bunt. As we pivot our back foot, we get our shoelaces directly to the pitcher. We open our front foot slightly and we create just a little bit of space here to get ourselves under control. With my top hand, I need to pinch the bat. I want to make sure that I'm in no danger of breaking my fingers. But you see what I have found here. I have found the balance point of the bat. That's the perfect spot for my top hand to go. If I'm too low with my top hand towards the knob, the bat's going to want to drop down, the bat head is. If I'm too high up on the bat head, the knob's going to want to bounce. So we want to find that balance point of the bat where if I actually let go with my thumb, the bat would stay balanced. This is going to give me the most control with the bat. Once I've established my top hand position, I want to get my bottom hand position. Now, in theory, I want to be about 12 inches apart on my grip when I sacrifice bunt. Why? Because this gives me control. If you notice, if I take my bottom hand and keep it down on the knob, every movement that I make with the knob hand is exaggerated doubly with the barrel. However, if I split that distance and I get within 12 inches of the top hand, now I can make really tiny adjustments to the ball as I'm trying to sacrifice. Let's face it, the pitcher's not always going to throw us a routine fastball down the middle to bunt. what determines our angles is our bottom hand. So as I get on out into perfect sacrifice mechanics, if I'm going down first, my bottom hand just simply pushes forward slightly. If I'm going to third, my bottom hand pulls back slightly to create an angle. If my goal is to have the least amount of movement as possible, I have to make sure when I show sacrifice bunt that the barrel of my bat is across the plate. What kind of pitch are we bunting? A strike only. A strike only. So I have good plate coverage. Now I get my bat at the top of the strike zone. I do all this as the pitcher is getting ready to deliver me the pitch. I'm here. I know that any ball above my barrel is just that. It's a ball. And I'm going to pull back. Okay? If any ball is below my knees, I pull back for a ball. My goal is to bunt strikes. You'll notice how far away the bat is from my body. I do not want to lock my front arm, for that's going to cause hard hands. I just want slight bend in my elbow, and I want to get the bat just below my eye level. The term I call for this is eye-bat ratio. By sinking my butt in my knees and keeping the bat up, now my eyes are right above the level of the bat. My goal is to maintain that throughout the bunting process. In this particular case, I'm going down first. As I bend my knees, the distance between the bat and my eyes, in theory, should not change until I get all the way down to my knees, which I know is a ball, and I'm going to pull back. It is much easier to track a baseball to the barrel of my bat when my eyes are just above the level of the barrel. However, if I use poor mechanics and I have my barrel down here, the ball is coming in and I'm looking down on the baseball. It's very hard to be precise when I'm trying to sack if I have the bat that low. And not only that, I open myself up to get hit with a foul ball. However, if I sink my butt, bend my knees, get the bat to the top of the strike zone, now if the ball is bunted foul, it's going back over my head. The biggest weakness that I see in sacrifice bunting is 1, players don't have good plate coverage. 2, they get very lazy with their eye-bat ratio and they want to drop the barrel of the bat in order to bunt. We just want to make sure that the barrel is higher than our hands, and if we have poor mechanics and slightly drop, we will be parallel and still have a good chance to execute the bunt. The third major flaw that I see is hitters think they have the bat out front, but in actuality, they don't really have it out in front at all. And if you see on the side view, they think they have it out. They don't drop that butt down and really get it out front with just slight relaxation of the elbow and give themselves a good chance to see the ball off the barrel for a successful sacrifice bunt. The fourth major flaw that I see when people try to sacrifice bunt is they worry about running to first too quickly. And what happens here is when they go to take off, it changes the angle of the bat. And now the ball doesn't go where it's supposed to. It ends up going hard right back to the pitcher, and they're an easy out, or our lead runner is an easy out as a force at second base. It's not our goal to be safe at first. Stay in there, see the ball down third, see the ball down first, and when you see it down, at that point you can take off and run. There's some misconceptions about bunting for a hit. It's a great weapon to have in our repertoire as a hitter. There's going to be days when the guy on that hill has my number. For whatever reason, I'm not seeing the ball well that day, or he's just dominating the game, or he's just got great stuff. But if I have the option to bunt for a hit, that's something that I can use to try to help my team when nothing else seems to be working. When I drag bunt down third base, my goal is to put the ball on the line. If it's fair, I got a hit. If it's foul, I get another opportunity to come into the box, readjust my game plan, and possibly swing the bat and help my team in another capacity. So I'm going to try to be precise. My second goal is to bunt strikes. There's certain pitches that are easier to bunt than others. The middle to end pitch is much easier to bunt down the third base line than the ball on the outer third part of the plate. Another responsibility when I'm bunting for a hit is to make sure that I take a little extra time to get the ball down so that I can be safe at first base. If I'm so worried about running, oftentimes it affects my eye-bat ratio and it messes up my ability to put the ball right down the third base line. Wherever I normally stand, that's where I'm going to be when I'm bunting for a hit or drag bunting down third base. My routine should be exactly the same. The element of surprise is in my favor. As I get set, once the pitcher gets to a point where he is coming down to his front foot landing, that's when I'm going to start to show the bunt. My right foot should work towards the back corner of the batter's box. As you watch my right foot move, it is going to slide to the back corner of the box. My right foot might move slightly as I get in a position to bunt, but this is by dropping my right foot, that's going to put me in a position to run. So as I'm dropping my right foot, I want you to pay attention to my hands because both these things are happening at the same time. As my right foot is dropping, my bat is coming out front into a perfect bunting position. Notice how sharp my angle is. I have to create an angle right down third base. I also have to have great plate coverage because I want to bunt strikes. When I'm trying to put the ball down the third base line, I try to point the end of my bat at the first base coach's box. That's kind of a good guide to help young hitters create that really sharp angle. So, we're in our stance, I drop step, and the hands come out front at the same time. For guys that like to use pine tar, this can be a little bit of an issue and you're going to have to show bunt just a little bit earlier because your hands are going to stick. But if you practice this enough, you should get very comfortable with the bat sliding into your hands into a perfect bunting position. So I drop step, get a good eye-bat ratio. Notice my knob hand is slid up for control. I see the ball down. Once it's down, I can cross over and take off for first base. The push bunt from the right-hand side is probably the most difficult bunt to execute. However, if you have a young man that has exceptional speed and has good bat control, it is an unbelievable weapon to have in your bag of tricks. The goal with the push bunt is we want to show this bunt a little bit earlier. The reason why we want to show it a little bit earlier is because we want that second baseman vacating his position to run to first base. Most second basemen are taught when they see bunt to go to first. So we're going to show it just a little bit earlier, and what happens when we start to show, everybody's moving. Now, my goal is to create an angle to second base with my bat. I let the ball come to the hitting zone. Both of my hands have to work together through the ball at the same time to maintain this angle to second base. If either of my hands dominate the push bunt, it's going to affect my angle and my consistency to be able to push the ball past the pitcher. I have to have enough speed on the bunt to get it past the pitcher but I don't want to bunt it so hard that it becomes a slow roller to the second baseman. Ideally, if I could get that ball to make 1 full or 2 full rotations as it rolled out onto the clay off the infield grass and stop, that would be a perfect speed. There's some misconceptions about bunting for a hit. It's a great weapon to have in our repertoire as a hitter. There's going to be days when the guy on that hill has my number. For whatever reason, I'm not seeing the ball well that day, or he's just dominating the game, or he's just got great stuff. But if I have the option to bunt for a hit, that's something that I can use to try to help my team when nothing else seems to be working. The drag bunt from the left-hand side has 2 basic options. This is the bunt down the third base line. My goal is to stay in the box, take an extra second to make sure that I execute the bunt properly, then I'm going to cross over and go. Yes, it takes a little bit more time, but if I execute the bunt correctly, I am safe more times than I'm out. What I want to do from the left-hand side is, of course, I stay in my normal spot in the box. Now, I'm going to drop step, but it's a different drop step than I use from the right-hand side. From the left-hand side, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my back leg and I'm going to drop it straight to the back of the box, about 6 inches. This forces me to stay in here. Then I create my angle as I drop. At the same time, right here, I get my eye-bat ratio. What's pointed at the first base coach's box this time? The knob of the bat. That creates that sharp angle down third. I see contact, and then I cross over and go. If I have any kind of speed, I'm safe. I have seen it taught where we teach our left-handers to step through with their left foot, then lay it down. That works, and it works well if you have exceptional athletes that have worked on bunting their whole life. When people are first learning how to bunt, if you try to have them run out of the box before they lay that bunt down, look what happens to my plate coverage. I don't have it. You can see where it is. Now I got to reach across to try to create the angle. That becomes very difficult to do. So you may want to start by establishing yourself with a drop step and learning how to create angles. And then if you get to a point where you've mastered that, you can try to implement the crossover and bunt. Basically, we're going to take this ball with us. So we're going to drop step, we're going to create an angle, and here we're just going to work through both hands on an angle to second base as we step across and go. Anytime we're crossing over or we're moving through an object, the ball is moving, our bat is moving, our eyes are moving, our body's moving. There's 4 things moving, and we're trying to make consistent contact to a very specific part of the field. You have to have exceptional eye-hand coordination to execute this type of bunt. On a hit and run, our base runner at first base or first and second base, they're going to be stealing on the pitch. I know that regardless of where this pitch is, I have to swing. And I want to make sure that I let that ball come into the hitting zone and I work on getting on top of the baseball. At the high school level and beneath, as a coach, I'm satisfied if my hitter gets the ball on the ground, anywhere on a hit and run. It's icing on the cake if they can hit the ball backside. What's the benefit of hitting the ball backside? Well, typically, with a right-handed hitter up and a straight steal taking place, it's going to be the second baseman's responsibility to cover. If he takes off out of his position to cover, there's nobody on the right side of the infield. So if I can show tremendous bat control and get inside the baseball and just inside out the baseball, stay inside as long as I can and just guide the baseball in that direction, I have a hit, even if it's a 5 or 6 hopper in the hole. The same thing applies for a left-hander. On a hit and run or on a steal, the shortstop, 9 times out of 10, he's going to cover the bag on a steal with a left-handed hitter up. Nobody is on the left-hand side of the infield. It's icing on the cake if I have a great hitter who can get inside and he just fights to stay inside the ball and take the ball in that direction on the ground. As I said, that's an extra bonus to accomplish that. We're just looking for the ball to get down somewhere so we can make the infielders move around, create some movement, create some holes in the infield, and try to make something happen for our offense. As I step into the batter's box and take my sign from the third base coach, I recognize that he's giving me the sign to slash. When he claps me off, I turn around and I'm thinking about my game plan on this pitch. I know my goal as a hitter is to sell sacrifice bunt. I want to convince the defense that I'm indeed sacrifice bunting. I want them coming hard down my throat because I got a surprise for them. So I'm going to get back up into the front of the box and I'm going to execute my sacrifice mechanics to perfection. The only thing I need to do different is I need to show my slash ever so slightly earlier than I do my sacrifice bunt. When the defense sees sacrifice bunt, 9 times out of 10, first base is crashing. 9 times out of 10, third base is crashing. Not only are those two guys moving, but the second baseman's often going to first to cover. The shortstop's going to second to cover, and it just opens the field wide up if I'm able to get the ball on the ground for a hit. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to show. Here they come, crashing down my throat. What I want to do is I want to stay choked up. Some people prefer to go back down to the knob. I prefer to stay choked up, and what I want to do is I basically want to rewind myself back up into a short loaded position, and I'm going to take my knob directly to the baseball when the ball gets to the hitting zone. And my job is to get on top of that ball and hit a hard line drive. So I have to swing at the pitch when I slash. I don't have a choice at the high school level. Now there's some teams in college and at the pro level, they know that their hitters have enough discipline, to make a smart decision. But in high school, we have to swing and we have to get the ball down. Anytime you let a high school player read, you're asking for trouble. And especially at the younger levels, you just want to force them to execute. So in review, we sell perfect mechanics early. We're going to be rewinding back up into a short load. We let the ball come to the hitting zone. We hit the top half of the baseball, barrel above the hands, get extension and finish, and we hit ourselves a ground ball somewhere on the field to help our team win. These are two plays that, if practiced regularly, your players can execute in the game to help your team win close ball games. The first thing that's going to happen when you step in the batter's box is we're always going to take our sign from the third base coach. I have a runner on third, obviously, and my third base coach is just giving me the squeeze sign. What we have to be careful here is not to give away to the defense that we're squeezing. We can't do anything different because good teams are going to pick up on the fact that you may squeeze with the runner on third base. Some coaches require hitters to give a sign back, some sort of nonverbal sign to indicate to the runner at third and to the third base coach that they have the sign. This is fine. However, it needs to be something very inconspicuous. Some teams will have their player grab the bill of their hat before they turn around, or they might step out, ask for time, and tie their shoe. You know, whatever the case may be, adjust the top of their helmet. That's indicating to both the third base coach and the runner that I have the sign. That way I'm not swinging away when the base runner is barreling on down to the plate. I have to be in my normal spot in the box because I'm doing nothing different. From here, what I want to do is basically I'm looking for the front foot of the pitcher to land before I show anything. For once his foot lands, there's nothing he can do to change the direction of the baseball that he's throwing. However, if I start to show before that front foot lands, he can redirect his throw, possibly up and in, to force me out of the way, and now my catcher catches the ball and we have an easy out on the tag. So we need to make sure that the front foot of the pitcher lands. We're going to quickly, I don't care if you square around, I don't care if you pivot, but you better get the ball down, and your job is to bunt the ball in fair territory no matter where that ball is pitched. We have to protect our base runner. It can be 3 foot outside, it can be 5 foot high, it can bounce in front of the plate. My job is to bunt that ball. So I got to get in behind the bat, create good eye-bat ratio as quickly as possible, and I got to act like my life depends upon it, and I'm going to get that ball down somewhere out in fair territory. If I get it down, we score a run. Because the runner's responsibility at third is exactly like mine. He's going to start his walking lead when that pitcher goes to deliver the pitch, and when that front foot lands, or just about the time it lands, he's braking full speed for the plate. And he's counting on me to execute. The safety squeeze is a little bit different. It's not so do or die. That's why the word suicide is taken out of it. It's safety. There's a safety element to it. Here as a hitter, I'm looking to get a pitch that I can bunt, that I can handle, and it's got to be a strike. My base runner, he's basically taking a walking lead, and if I get the bunt down away from the pitcher, he's going to react to the plate by running and scoring the run. That's a little bit safer. So really my execution is not much different. When the front foot lands, I'm going to go ahead and turn, and I'm going to just work on getting the ball down away from the pitcher. If it's a ball, I'm pulling back. If he delivers a strike, I'm doing everything I can to get the ball down. If the ball's pitched away, I'm just going to go with it that way. If it's inside, I'm going to try to take it down this way away from the pitcher, and my base runner is seeing the ball down and reading the ball down, and when it does, he takes off home and I take off to first. My goal is not to be safe at first base. My goal is to execute the bunt and get it down in fair territory and then take off. If I'm out, so what? We're looking to score the run. Don't try to be selfish and be so concerned about being safe on a safety squeeze that you bunt the ball right back to the pitcher or right here in front of the plate, and now our runner's frozen at third. They throw me out at first, and we've accomplished absolutely nothing.